Well, what's going on, everybody? This is episode 29 of Burning the Red Shirts. It is an episode without Zach, maybe our second ever, and probably our second highest viewed and listened to podcast, I'm guessing, by the time it's all said and done. But
addition by subtraction.
Yep. So I got obviously Andrew and myself here today to talk week 2 of football and then look forward to week 3. What's going on, man? What did you think? What's the top of mind right off the bat? What we got?
Dude, so I'm following, as I'm ever known to do, scheduling going on because it's like my favorite thing. And did you see that the SEC told Georgia and Tennessee to cancel the Oklahoma series that they have coming up? Basically, yep. I assume the basic idea is that the buyouts will be paid and things will happen to get those Oklahoma and Texas into the SEC sooner rather than later. And then OU and SMU just announced just now that they're doing a home and home in 2023 and 2027. So
that's awesome.
Too coincidental to be incidental.
I mean, two things on that. One, that Pete Thamel guy is breaking all the news these days. I don't know.
Dude, he's one of those losers that people just funnel their press releases to.
It's amazing. The guy breaks everything from small schools to big schools. But I would imagine, right, it just would mess with, obviously, 2023, it doesn't mess with Georgia's scheduling.
No, Tennessee, it does. Well, no, it does. But Georgia and Oklahoma were supposed to do a home and home starting next year.
Well, I meant more with like the SEC conference schedule that it would in 2031. Like 2031, 100% would have messed with SEC conference scheduling, right? Like, so maybe that's why they just ished it and said, let's
I don't know. I haven't dug into like the replies and the conspiracy theories, but I assumed that the idea was, hey, maybe we can make this like happen by next year. Don't play that game against OU next year because we're gonna like
leave the door open for it.
We'll move mountains. We'll get it done.
I mean, SEC has to have the money to do it.
How do they not have the money? Of course they have the money.
I mean, what are they doing? They are like the second greatest power in the world, maybe. But awesome. You kind of mentioned it, or you and Nate kind of went back and forth a little bit on it earlier today. It's Kent State week. It's Colin Schley week, which is great. The first of many.
Yeah, I avoided Dustin Crum in best balls last year because I thought like with the non-con that Kent State does, it was just too much to pay for a second round type of draft value when you're factoring in like he's useless for 3 weeks. But I was still stoked last year. I remember just like, okay, cool. Week 3 comes around, we actually get to see Kent State in action, and they played like some FCS school, and it was just him handing it off to Marquez Cooper a bunch of times. Nykeem Johnson went for like 100 on the ground as a wide receiver. Crum didn't even really get unleashed until Mac play. So I wonder how much, having watched a little bit of Schley so far this year already, I get the feel that like Sean Lewis will call a play and Schley will just kind of do whatever he wants. Like he's already running it like 20 times a game. It's amazing that he's okay coming out of it again against Washington and Oklahoma. So they might try and call safe plays for him to like get him through the first 4 weeks. God, like can you imagine he gets hurt against LIU and like Georgia isn't even the team that takes him down next week? Like we have that looming as the huge blocker to his health to getting him to MAC play that he has to go into Athens, but. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be fun to see that team, Kent State, has surprisingly held their own, I think, in so many different ways so far in these first 2 games. I watched a good amount of the Washington game, and even though Washington pulled away and was comfortably ahead the whole time, just drive to drive, play to play, it didn't feel like this was just one of those games that was an absolute train wreck. Even though Schley threw a pick on the first possession, Washington got a couple quick touchdowns, but the defense didn't get the doors blown off of them, and they were able to move the ball. And I didn't catch the Oklahoma game this past week, but they were up like 3-0 with 2 minutes left in the first half. Like, why not? So as someone who's hugely invested in Schley and also has the over on their win total of 5. I'm feeling better and better about that. Just got to get through these next couple of weeks, and then things will look good in the MAC play.
Yeah, I think that LIU game will be fun just because, usually they just use a bunch of running backs, but Xavier Williams has just disappeared. He didn't play in that bowl game, right? And then I think he had like hip or something surgery, and he hasn't played since. And he's
you just added him somewhere, right?
I just added him in the 50 teamer. Someone dropped him.
Did you see that? He's like, is he supposed to be good to go soon?
No, I just figure if I have an open injured reserve spot, I might as well.
Point.
And it wasn't like, those 50 teamers, you just have flyers and a couple guys were just dead weight. So I was like, I might as well just cut one and add one, and then I can add them back or something, right?
I always forget to stock up my injured reserve in CFF.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in like a format like that, you draft them, you put them right in, you can just add another guy anyways, right?
Yeah.
But I think like he could have a huge game. Usually you're like, well, your superstar quarterback just hands it off a bunch. He has a couple passing touchdowns, whatever. But with no Williams, there's definitely the possibility of him getting more of that like rushing share in terms of touchdowns, or maybe he breaks one type of thing rather than Xavier Williams breaking one. So it'll be what a difference, night and day difference between LIU and Georgia. But Georgia's the worst team in football in terms of sacks. So
is that true?
They only have one, right? So I think they're tied with somebody with one.
I was thinking about this the other day or last night, like late at night. I've been cycling through like some baby germs and just unable to sleep and all kinds of stuff going on. It's been a lot of fun. But late at night, this thought was going through my head that I would never actually put in the time to research and vet it. But based on some of the things we've seen this year, I'm starting to think that some of these teams that are getting paid for bye games, they're shifting their strategy so grossly in the direction of let's not get injured, let's not get embarrassed, that the gameplay is like getting severely compromised. Like Michigan only getting one sack and nothing else against Hawaii the other night. Utah State and Alabama, it was just quick pass after quick pass. Let's just end this game as quickly as we can. Georgia only getting one sack in these first couple of games. I think these teams that are getting paid for these bye games are starting to realize, like, let's not even make any sort of effort to actually make this competitive to try and win. Let's just pay, get out of here, or let's get paid, let's get out of here, and let's just get healthy.
So are you saying that Oregon just kind of laid down and just ran the ball?
When it came out of my mouth, I was like, should I proactively go out and take this to the next level? But I'm happy you took it there for me.
Of course. I thought about this yesterday, and I talked about this on the Bet on CTC pod. There's a lot of like offensively for these teams that are smashing, right? Like UCLA was the perfect example that all of a sudden it's like, wait, is this like an epidemic? And it's over at this point, right? Because these cushy games are pretty much done. But like you see UCLA just take away DTR in the second quarter. Everybody was like, well, he got hit and he was banged up. He had another pass, like a nice pass, and then he just went to the bench, and it comes out, Robinson is quoted as saying like, well, it was Garb's time to shine. So, he wasn't hurt, and Charbonnet is the same way. Okay, maybe he's dinged up a little bit, but he would have totally played if it was a real matchup FBS. And then Jalen Knighton missed the first game of the season. Then he only gets 5 carries on Saturday. Like, those are all calculated. We're going to smash these teams. So we're just going to might as well just chill. I think Scott Bell mentioned it in Discord about like Donovan Edwards. He's probably not going to play. Then he said Blake Corum is going to get like maybe 8 to 12 touches on the ground and a couple. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, where are these people getting information from? But it's all happening, right? Like, so I think there's something going on with these bye games, these money games. But there's also the rumor or the thought that like Kirby didn't want to smash Samford because there's some ties and some friendships. But I have no idea who's friends with who in terms of Kirby.
Yeah, maybe next year's best ball strategy we'll avoid easy schedules.
So yeah, we want the hardest schedules there.
We want the Kent States of the world.
Well, in the future, we don't have to worry about Kent State. You've seen their future schedules, haven't you?
So
it's next like prime. They're like, I'm talking prime real estate of good FBS matchups that could create awesome offense.
They get like UCF and some other fun teams, right?
Fresno State and UCF both on the road. They play Wagner next year, and they play at Arkansas, which not going to potentially be great, but I could name a couple worse SEC teams to play.
Yeah.
The year after, they play Pitt and Tennessee. Awesome games.
Yeah.
Like Tennessee's giving up points in that one. And then they have Penn State. Penn State's not like world beaters. And then the year after that, they have Kennesaw State, which is like a local team to me. That's like a triple option team. They took all the Georgia Tech stuff back when Georgia Tech was Georgia Tech, and then Ohio State. So we have some potential for Schlee to have like if you, we have him in the BTR Dynasty League where he's going to be startable 11 games a year, which is not the norm. Not this year at least. This year was just brutal what they did to him, but
yeah,
here we are. So, was there something specific in week 2 that jumped out to you? Was there a game?
Did you play main slate last week?
I did.
How'd that go? So you don't have to answer because it doesn't sound good. But
my typical, I lost like 30-40%.
I only entered like two lineups, doing my typical, not playing much main slate just because I need to not be too horrific of a human being during the day.
Sure.
But the 2 I entered, one of them, I was trying to just kind of think about what I can do to be contrarian, and the way that I've had the most success when I try and create contrarian CFB lineups, like it doesn't always hit, but I feel like it's the easiest, most fruitful way to be contrarian and not need to have just ridiculous shit happen, is just trying to look at and I feel like this is what you need to do. You need to do stuff like this on like a 14-game slate if you're trying to be contrarian. Like night slate, I don't think you never really need to get that interesting. It's like my strategy is a little more different. It's just play my favorite players. But like on the main slate, I like to look for like what good offense is in a perceived bad matchup and just target them, because outside of very, very rare situations, it really always feels like in CFB that we overrate how much of an impact a good defense is going to have against an offense that we should have a lot of confidence in. So I stacked Quinn Ewers, Bijan, and Worthy. And for a quarter, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking phenomenal.
This is going to work.
Yeah. And Ewers, dude, their ownerships were 1%, 5%, and 2%. And it like the lineup ended up wouldn't have been whatever, kind of just because I Braden Allen and like Audric Esteem or whatever, but it was still fun and to see that exercise playing out. And I feel like I've seen more success with that type of contrarian maneuver more so than like any other. Like last year, thinking back to stacking Purdue against Iowa and David Bell at like 2% ownership goes for 17 catches, and then in the conference championship weekend, Alabama against Georgia, just throwing up Bryce Young and Jameson Williams and Mechie, and they were all like sub 5% as well. It's like what do you really need to have go right? You just need your offense that you're stacking to be your offense. So I don't know, when I think about my different criteria for trying to build lineups and be different, like that has been my number one go-to in the past, and I think generally it'll continue to be so.
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing against like 10,000 entries, right? Like you can't just, and you're playing 1 or 2 lineups, like what's the point of just doing what everybody else is doing? I think that makes a lot of sense to just pick on an offense that you like and just go with them. The ownerships were awesome for you, and conceivably that game could have got real dicey. It already got dicey, but like it could have been 30-29 dicey in that situation. How does Texas compete with Bama? They like offensively, it's from those 3, right? Those are really nice options. So Ewers, were you impressed with Ewers? Because I was incredible. I was pretty impressed. He had that deep ball to Worthy. He threw it like Worthy must have been on like the 30. Yeah. It was like when when you're a kid and you throw the football to yourself and you just chuck it as high as you can and you run under it. Like that's what it felt like with Worthy, because it came out of his hand. And I swear to God, he was at the 30 and he caught it at like the 2, right?
Yeah.
I was impressed.
He looked amazing. Everything looked so easy. And thinking back to week 1, it's super apparent that they just intentionally hid their game plan and just dinked and dunked against, who was it that they played? Monroe or something like that?
Monroe, I think.
Yeah. And if Bama doesn't injure Ewers, I think they win that game by double digits. Like they totally had them caught off guard.
Yeah, I think if Ewers is, I mean, once Casey Thompson went in, it was Hudson Card went in. It was pretty much, I mean, you pretty much had to get as lucky as possible. And like
they still could have won.
And they still could have won. Yeah, I definitely think Texas wins double digits. Very possible for sure. Tennessee and Pitt was fun. How much of that game did you watch?
I didn't catch any.
It was. I created one showdown team and it had Tillman at captain, so it was for a minute it got real nice.
Yeah.
But man, that Tennessee offense is fun, and they're shifting very much to like it feels like a really running back by committee, not a whole lot, and just a lot of chucking it with Hooker to his 3 receivers. They used a ton of guys in the first week, which isn't too surprising in a cushy matchup, but everything went to Tillman, Hyatt, and Brew. And Hyatt's going to be, I think, like a PPR machine.
Dude, we have a few of those offenses this year where everything is funneling to like 3 receivers. The Tulsa target shares, I'm so annoyed that I don't have more of those receivers. And we shouldn't talk about that too much because I'll rant about Davis Brin for a good hour, no problem. But it's awesome just seeing this concentrated target shares around just like 2 or 3 receivers.
It's funny. Tulsa's the exact like team I was thinking of when you said concentrated like that, because when I'm creating projections, I have to go through RotoWire and look at targets and stuff, and I swear I don't even have to. Like I could do it in week 2, and I don't touch receivers for the rest of the year. Like those 4 in the last couple of years, it's been 4 receivers, and it's like 23%, 22%, 18%, 16%, which is like incredible. If you were to look at like Tennessee's, Brew McCoy is like 15% of targets, and he's like the receiver 3. So Tulsa will be interesting to see if they keep it going. But for Tennessee, real quick, Hyatt, all they did was just throw these quick little 1 yard, like just snap it, throw it to him types, and then Brew is like the outside kind of go deep type of guys. I will say and admit that I screamed when Brew scored, of course, for
That's
many
awesome.
reasons. But they'll use them in different ways. I think they'll be very productive, though. I think that offense will be fun. It'll see how good they can be against Georgia, though. I think they'll score against everybody pretty much, but you just don't know about Georgia.
I think they could score on Georgia. Do you remember when they played last year? Tennessee might have been winning at the half, or at minimum, it was a close game at the half, and then Georgia just ended that in the second half. But it was a good game.
As a Georgia fan, what is Georgia a passing team now? Can we just get? You think they're a passing team? They're like
they are.
Melton and McIntosh. You guys were only 4.5 stars, not 5 stars, so we can't lower our level of excellence at the running back position.
Yeah, well, no, dude, we're full blown Todd Monken offense this year. It's great. Just give Stetson the Heisman now.
I was like, after the Oregon game, I was like, no. I mean, like, it's possible he wins it, but if they keep passing it and they keep winning, he is going to be a.
Have you seen what the odds look like?
I have no idea.
Okay, so I put a Stetson bet down before the year started because I told myself, like, I can't not have this, and then it somehow happens. But the odds now are, it's like plus 300 Bryce, plus 300 Stroud, plus 300 Williams, and like depending on what sportsbook you're looking at, it's all kind of like mix and match around those areas. And then Stetson is plus 1,400, so 14-1.
You get that? Was it like 4,500 to start or something like that?
Dude, it was 100-1.
100-1. What did you put on it?
Just 50.
Oh,
I know.
It's still gonna be nice though.
Yeah, one of hits exactly. Dude, your boy. People are trying to come up with some garbage argument that your boy JJ's in the hunt for the Heisman now. How do you feel about it?
I mean, no, he's not gonna do it. I mean, it's not possible like Stetson, but like conceivably he has the tools. And there's no consistency in that he hasn't played great teams yet, right? Like we saw him against Michigan State last year crumble with a horrible fumble and it turned the game around for Michigan State. Like, does he have the skill set and will he have the opportunity just being on a winning team? Yeah, but like I would be shocked if he's even in like the top 10. I'd be shocked.
He's got a pretty he's already on FanDuel, him and Stetson have the same odds. They're 20-1, which is funny. Like they've clearly taken a ton of JJ action, have had to change things. DraftKings, my source of truth, 14-1 for Stetson, 30-1 for JJ. JJ's schedule. I mean, everyone kind of talked about it before coming into the year. The Michigan schedule is very nice. Lots of cupcakes, lots of opportunities to show out. Closed a little tough with, I think, with obviously Michigan in the last game. The second to last game's tricky too, right? And then there's Iowa and Michigan State in there. But outside of that, it's like pretty just.
It's really not even tricky besides Ohio State there at the end. The month of November is Rutgers, Nebraska, Illinois, with 2 of those at home.
Oh, yeah. That's my mistake. I was buying into the Illinois garbage that people are stealing. Dude,
I don't even want to talk
about
Rutgers, though. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, would it be cool? Like, I think he has the potential for fantasy upside, but, you know, anytime you're a QB that can score and do some different things on a winning team, you're in the. There was a reason why, like, the USC, Oklahoma, and Ohio State quarterbacks are always in the mix, and Bama, right? Because they're always going to win 9+ games,
right?
At the beginning, at least, right? So makes a lot of sense.
Similarities too. Like, okay, so their odds in terms of just where they are in terms of Heisman favorite or board or whatever you want to call it, they're already far enough up there now where, like, as long as they don't just crumble and their team loses a game, all they're going to do is move further up the board.
Right.
So the path is so clear. It's not like they need all these things to happen, right? It's like to at minimum to be in the top 2 or 3, just keep winning games and don't throw like 4 picks.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to give you 4 running backs that people were hyping, myself in parts included. So this is not a shot at anybody. Truly not a shot at anybody. I will let you know if there's a shot at somebody. But there's 4 running backs that all kind of been like backseat, kind of a little bit in the front seat of their teams rushing. Nobody has jumped out, in my opinion, as like the RB1 we thought of their team. I want you to tell me which one you think has the best chance of being like that guy that we hope for, and which one you think is the dud. Okay. 0 prep, by the way, and I just thought about this 34 seconds ago. Brandon Campbell for Houston. Corey Kiner for Cincinnati. Nathaniel Pete for Missouri. And Kamar Wheaton for SMU. All of them were like hyped up, but like kind of in this new scenery / like, will they be the RB1? But if they are, that's a great spot. So now that I've given you a couple of seconds to think, which one you want to start with, the dud or the stud of the 4?
I'll just talk about them all, and then you could sort through my word vomit and let me know where I stand. I was fully convinced after the first game of the year that Pete was going to ascend and just be the dude. It seemed like he took over in the second half of the Louisiana Tech game. I didn't watch any of the game against Nebraska, but I think there was like trash weather.
Kansas
Everything
State
kind of went wrong. He was still getting most of the carries there. I think there's still the concern that he's just not that good, but he's probably like, I don't understand what could possibly happen where he's not taking an obscene amount of the rushing share that sooner than later. Like before the season started, it was pretty apparent that they were going to initially roll with Cody Schrader. So I edited him pretty much everywhere I could. And have you watched him? It's just not good.
He's just not great. He's your super productive D2 FCS guy that, like, nothing against him. He just, and maybe it's just the different style of offense that doesn't necessarily gel. He's just not
good for me that first Thursday, 3,200. He was like, he cashed like 4x and won me a bunch of money. So we're good, but it's just probably not happening in the SEC play. And then Kamar, like, who knows, right? I feel like we've seen that he's obviously not playing because he's still recovering. So how do you just, like, this is the thing that I don't know if we're supposed to have some level of confidence about this or have some ability to perceive this, and we don't. But the idea that a switch, like the idea that you were out 1 week recovering from a major surgery that you were out and recovering for like 6-7 months, and now, the switch flips. You were out last week. Now you're good to go. Like, what happened in that extra week? With Logan Bonner, the idea that, right, he was just going to be suddenly good to go after being kind of held out in scrimmages and being babied throughout the offseason, that he was just going to flip a switch and, like, it was going to be wheels up for him coming off of an ACL surgery over 6-7 months. But with Kamar, maybe it's being I don't understand to some degree what they're doing, because they gave him 6 carries in the first game in garbage time, right? And then they totally held him out the following week. Like that's not ramping up, that's ramping down. Did something go wrong in week 1? And the initial idea, right, was that he was going to ramp up and then kind of take on a material part of the game plan in like weeks 3, 4, heading into the skillet and heading into conference. But now I feel like we're kind of on pause, and I don't know how you could have a informed hypothesis on him at this point. It seems very mystifying.
Yeah, to pause here and just recoup on the first 2 guys. Yeah, 100%. Wheaton makes no sense. The whole back and forth, like he's hurt, but he's not going to, Siggers is going to be the guy in week 1, and then over time Wheaton takes over, and it doesn't feel like any of that has gelled with what was actually said, right? Like, like is Troy Calhoun the coach of SMU these days? So, and then on P, I 100% agree. Like, he was the guy that left that Louisiana Tech game as the best looking running back.
Yeah, I played him this past week. It went great.
It was awesome, right? By far, me too. I did in the 50 team, and I lost because of it, in a sense. By far, looked the best, right? Like, and I have Elijah Young in some places. Like, I really would like for him to be the guy. That's not it. Same with Strader. So you would think that he is it, but I don't know if I trust that coach, right? Like, he comes out and says yesterday or the day before that he played Luther Burden too much, that he wants him to play 20 less snaps. And he got him. Did you see that quote?
No, I missed that.
He's like, he plays 65 snaps in the game against Kansas State, which is about 20 too many. And I'm like, dude, you got your best offensive player 2 targets and 1 touch. Like, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. But I'll let you continue on with Campbell, and who was the 4th one? Kiner.
Kiner feels kind of inevitable, right? It's continuing to progress in direction, maybe a little more slowly than expected, but it just feel like a matter of time before he ramps up to like 15, 20 carries. I haven't watched. I've been intentionally avoiding Cincy games until Prater gets started. I'm boycotting. So no idea how he actually looks, but it seems like I don't think it was a given based on just the offseason reports that he was going to work himself into the game plan and the rotation this quickly. He's already a guy that you can start, and you've got a decent floor associated with him. And I don't know what is necessarily preventing him from doing what he was largely expected to do coming into the year. What do you think?
I mean, that offense needs like a real true like running back. It feels like they have a bunch of and I think the same kind of with Houston, but not as many options. Like, they have like 3rd down backs. They have like a guy that's like a big guy, like the 1st, 2nd down back, and it feels like kind of just the complete, and all the other ones are just kind of like pieces.
Yeah, I hated on Kiner all off season, so whatever. I don't have any of them. Maybe I'll make some money on him in DFS, but his ascension will do nothing but negative things for any of my teams.
Yeah, well, all my teams are screwed, so I'm not really too concerned about that. But
so number 1 for me though is that. Have you watched Brandon Campbell? Did you catch any of the Houston game?
I did not catch.
Dude, that dude's incredible. He looks so good. Like, he does the thing. So first of all, he is when he was coming over, I feel like what was advertised about him was his size and speed, and the size just stands out. Like, and it's not just, I don't know. To me, Kiner's always looked like super plump and slow. That's not going on with Brandon Campbell at all. Like, he's terrifying just watching. And he does the thing where, like, I don't know who else I've seen do it besides Adrian Peterson, where he's running, and no matter what even when he's running in place, his feet are just moving all over the place, and it's just horrifying to look at. And I don't know, like that. I think that dude just looks incredible on the football field, and the stats bear it out too to start the year. He's dinged up, right, coming into this game against Houston. So
is Taysom Henry. So sounds like both of them could be limited, could just not even play. Who knows?
Yeah. I was lucky to get Campbell in one league all waivers after this past week, so I at least have a little bit of investment. But all these guys are guys that I'm never going to have via our best ball drafts, at least based on how I've drafted this past year and in previous years. Like, because I don't know, it's so much feels like it's pure projection, pure speculation. And yeah, if you want to make that speculation based on things like size, speed, recruiting ranking, maybe that removes some of the variables and adds some certainty to it. But I don't know. I feel like that would be, if I tried to do that, it would be me just stealing other people's strategies. And I don't know, it's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like you've been hurting from it, right? Like none of those guys, maybe Campbell last week was worth a use or roster in best ball, right? Like, yeah. And I would say, right, 2 of these 4 are for sure not going to be worth the capital that people
I guess, especially in best ball, though, the season's super young.
It's very young, right?
It's 13 weeks. It's not like season long in managed where you're feeling that crunch already after 2 weeks. If you're 0-2, 1-1, you've got only another 8 weeks to make things up, and you got to make it work. But best ball, you think about it as a 13-week season. So what happened? I mean, yeah, it's easy to in some cases gravitate towards the certainty associated that some players have based on role early on in the year, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to make for a successful season.
Yeah. So it sounds like Campbell is your stud, and not Siggers. Wheaton is your dud. That almost kind of sounds like
I can't even call Wheaton a dud because I have no idea. Let's put Pete as the dud for now, just because I think you need to almost put Wheaton on the side because there's no way you can form a really strong conjecture about it. But then we'll call Pete the dud for now. We'll throw Kiner in the middle and Campbell up top.
Okay. That works for me. What is more surprising? Chuck Sizzle as your number 4 yards per game receiver, or Evan Hull as your number 5 yards per game player?
I hate them both because I don't have any of them anywhere. That the whole like Pee Wee football thing is something that I normally would latch onto and gravitate towards so much, and I don't have any Charlie effing Jones.
You're telling me you would rather draft your best ball teams based on Pee Wee football relationships than recruiting ratings and off-season projections?
You can't understate the power of the mind meld between QB and receiver, man. When you got it. Think Davis Webb and Ched Hansen, Sam Hartman and A.T. Perry. Like once you've got it, then you know that dude's getting 15 targets a game, and those targets it's not just garbage targets either. It's like we don't even have to call a play anymore. I know and you know where the ball's going to be, and you're going to get it.
You just do a little eye thing, and you're like,
yeah.
Like, all right, cool. I'm doing a go route, and at this point, I'm going to look.
Yeah.
You know who's got that same type of relationship? I found out yesterday. This is only for Burning the Red Shirt followers and whoever follows this one Twitter account. Xavier Restrepo and Tyler Van Dyke.
I saw as well.
Restrepo man crush on TVD is awesome, and he kind of checks out. He's got I think it's 5 targets led them on in week 1 and 7 last week. We've been looking for an actual receiver 1 for that offense. And maybe that's the key, right? Like, there's 2 certainties in life. It's where's this transfer portal quarterback going? Just find where his girlfriend plays sports at, and that's where he's going. And then as well as this option here, who's the man crush between the quarterback and the receiver? Sounds like
fucking have Evan Hull, man.
Evan Hull is astonishing to me. That makes
every time Froten took him in one of our best balls, I just laughed at him like, oh, that's a wasted fucking pick.
Yeah, like, brutal. I mean, and he didn't even spend up on him too. That's the crazy thing.
No, it was like 22nd round or some shit.
Nobody could see this coming. Part of a running back by committee, they returned a bunch of guys. Cam Porter was amazing as a freshman, or was very good as a freshman with potential, gets hurt in the offseason. So he had the full year to get healthy. He was not limited, and yet the Northwestern offense is moving the ball and they throw it only to Hull, apparently. So I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Do you have a Ohio State receiver situation is interesting to me because of these injuries?
Yeah.
Going into the year, right? Jackson Smith and Jigba was a top 5 overall pick. He goes down in the first week. Nothing serious, but enough where he doesn't play against the money games. Then you see Ibuka be great in the first week. Marvin Harrison Jr. got a bunch of targets. Marvin Harrison had that crazy game last week. Like, do you have a vibe on how you think that plays out, or do you think you just haven't seen enough, or maybe we haven't seen enough to really have any educated guess?
Do you think JSN plays this week?
I do, yeah.
Why would they play him? Just to like ramp him up?
I bet he plays in like limited fashion. At a certain point, you got to get like snaps in, And
yeah, it's fair.
I mean, it's not like he's played all 3 years, right? He had that last season. He was great, but he didn't like that ascension kind of came, it feels like, halfway through the season when Wilson and Olave got hurt. There's also Fleming that's hurt. Yeah. So there's a lot of weird things going on. I don't know.
Yeah, that offense. So you don't do the 4-1 league that Joe runs, right?
No way. I saw that and was like, that's way too much. I'm out.
So do you understand it or no?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's not as it kills way too much of my time. I will say that, but it is not too much in the sense that all you're doing is you're just setting one lineup where you just pick your players from the player pool every single week, and you can't pick a player twice throughout the entire year. And you pick, it's 18 players. It's like five QB, 5 running back, 5 receiver, 3 flex. And the 4-1 comes from the idea that starting week 1, there's a tournament where that goes over the first 6 weeks, and it's like a NCAA March Madness style bracket thing. And at the end, a champion's crowned to that at the end of 6 weeks. And then later on, there's another version of that starts up in like week 8. And then there's like top points, which is like the third part, like overall points across the entire season. And then the fourth part is something I don't understand. Like he calls it an eliminator, but I'm not sure how it works. I think like the bottom third gets eliminated like every week over X amount of weeks or something. But you're still only setting one lineup. But I'm burning all of my players now trying to win this first tournament. We're down to the Sweet 16 of that one this week. So I've been trying to figure out what I want to do with Ohio State this week. I don't think I've played any Ohio State yet. I was thinking about playing Marvin last week and didn't. It didn't backfire on me, though. I still got through against my opponent. But what I'm trying to figure out is, can I play Marvin this week, factoring in like what JSN's likely role is. And I don't know. I'm not quite sure right now he's not in my lineup, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet.
You've used JSN or no?
I haven't.
I would. It feels like if you don't use.
I used Ibuka last week.
I was going to say, if you haven't used Marvin yet, it's almost like you can't, or you probably shouldn't once JSN's back. So it's almost like this is your last opportunity in that format.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but I don't know. I don't know where things are going to ultimately go in this format, just because I'm burning so many top players every single week pretty quickly, under the idea that like I know I have Mac shit up my sleeve, I have Big 12 conference play up my sleeve, and invariably injuries will happen and new
the backups, the fill-ins.
Yeah, new things will. I'll have opportunity. It's not like I won't have. Like I'll be playing just total duds and like backups and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that I feel like it's difficult to have a really strong opinion on the offense relative to the receivers, just because the main factor, at least presently, is how much playing time JSN gets this week. Right, that's going to have a huge impact on the game plan. The running game there is so weird too. Do you think that they are just easing in Travion with the schedule, or how fucked am I with taking him as a first-round pick?
To answer your question, I don't think you're that screwed. I think you have the ability. You'd be crazy not to use Henderson like he was last year. There was no reason to think that he's not going to be a star in Big Ten play. It seems almost like they're just pushing Stroud. Once it gets out of hand, it's almost too late for Henderson.
Yeah,
I mean,
they are rotating series pretty evenly between him and Mayan right now.
I feel like that's a freshness thing. I don't feel like that's you can't tell me when they're playing Michigan State, Penn State, Iowa, Michigan that like they're gonna still rotate in the worst Mayan. And Mayan's not bad. He's just not Travion. Like,
yeah,
you're crazy. Last year he was at like 55% of carries. And he kind of, remember, right? Like, if he had his big games last year, it was because he had like huge runs early on, right? It wasn't like it was usage. So
right.
I think you're fine.
I was
think
thinking,
you're kind of keeping his legs fresh.
Like, once he, like, I was gonna say once we get to the point where he has to play full games, but that doesn't really happen. Once he gets to the point where he has to play 3 quarters, he'll probably find his way in the neighborhood of 17 to 20 touches, and he could go anywhere from like 140 yards to 300 yards with that.
Yeah, we got to remember, right? He's 19, maybe 20, depending on birthday. I don't have it up for obvious reasons. He's now a full year and a half probably into college. His legs, they're probably concerned at a certain point. Like, we got to keep him fresh for the end of the season when we need him the most. Like, that's a long season, right? It's kind of like baseball. Like the guys that aren't used to the full season, you really see them kind of fall off or slow down towards the end because they're just not used to that wear and tear. And I'm guaranteeing you they go crazy in the weight room still nonstop. And they never did that in high school. That's for sure. What is there a game that jumps out to you for week 3? Is there one that like you clicked on the DraftKings main site and you're like, please God, be a part of this, or I can't wait to see the pricing for these guys?
The timing of Wake and Liberty is so annoying. It's like 5 p.m. or some shit, so it's not on any slate, because that would have been a fun. Like, I would have. While I'm not confident that Salter does anything new, representative nuclear in that matchup, Wake's D had little problem slowing down Mike Wright last week, right? Who, I mean, they kind of presumably are going to do the same things, run the ball and chuck it around. But it would have been fun to have that game on the slate and just roll out some Salter lineups at presumably pretty low ownership and a nice price and see what happens. But yeah, when I saw that game time and knowing that game's nowhere to be found on any slate, that was a little annoying. I mean, the Purdue Syracuse game. Why do you think the total on that is only 59?
They probably think that Syracuse is just going to run it so much that it slows down.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's got to be it, right? Because if you think about it, right, they run a bunch. I want to say they have like 48 passing attempts in 2 games, and they have like 90 rushing attempts.
Yeah.
Now they've been up pretty big, right? They played UConn and they played Louisville, but Louisville was a fairly decent like competitive matchup, and they still ran it a bunch. So that's got to be it.
Yeah, it's just a 2-man game the whole time with Tucker and Schrader.
So great. I think that's a stack option.
For sure. Yeah. Did you? I did pretty decent on night slate last week, and most of my lineups were just stacking the 2 of them. Like, I didn't take anything home. I didn't take down any wins or anything like that, but I cashed most of my lineups, and I don't know, that shit's so much fun when you have the running back who's going to be on the field 95% of the time. Then you've got the QB that, well, one of his main targets is that running back, and so much of the other time he's just running the ball over the place. Like it was like Ritter and Jerome Ford last year when you could play them together sometimes.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, you don't ever want to like have to fall back on, Tucker will get all the touchdowns. You want both of them to just have a lot of touchdowns and yards. But like if Schrader has an average game, it's because Tucker like stole all the touchdowns. Like as long as Syracuse scores, they are scoring the touchdowns. There's the possibility of you getting screwed over by that or just like defensive return stuff. But I don't think Syracuse has that type of talent, that type of game. The game I'm like super excited for is this USC Fresno State game. I think that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
That is a true, that Fresno offense is 4 dudes and like just 4 dudes. And then there is the USC.
It's too late though to be on like the true night slate.
I think it'll be last week they started the late night at 10:15, so I think it'll make it.
No, sorry.
Not the night slate, but it'll be the late night slate.
Yeah.
I like a late night slate that has like real games.
I haven't played the late night at all this year.
Late night's been my most profitable, so I have to keep playing it.
Yeah. Well, you're dealing with losers like me that just drunkenly enter all their lineups.
I'm barely coherent, and I do it, right? Like, what's funny is I was talking to my buddy Glenn, and there was this running back news. I think it was Trey Lowe was out for Oregon State, and I already set my lineups. It was like 30, 40 minutes in advance, and I was ready. And he's like, you should rerun your stuff. And I was like, I don't know, man. That doesn't feel that big a deal. I was like, screw it. I'll do it. And I don't know if I showed you, but I got third place in the big late night.
Oh,
I was
nice.
1 point away from $10,000. And it had Deshaun Fenwick in it. And I told him, and he was like, you're an idiot. Like, why did you ever? He was like laughing, like, you're an idiot. Like, thank God you went back and reran, huh? Looking at some of the other games, let's see.
The actual night slate's sweet this week. There's so many fun games. Like I hopefully they'll put on UCF, Florida Atlantic, and then Memphis, Arkansas State, Texas Tech, NC State.
Yeah,
there's some nice potential.
Yeah, there's some good potential there. I don't know how much I believe in DraftKings to do that, to put like Arkansas State, Memphis. Champ Fleming's is going to be like 3,100. Just watch. They're going to put instead Iowa, Nevada. So
yeah, it sounds
that's just what they're going to do. I'm thinking of main games. I was going to say Oklahoma, Nebraska. That line is very like it's like 12. That feels like a mistake, right?
I guess. I don't know. Like, Nebraska's just going to play closest games against most teams, right? And find a way to lose. That's the narrative that's out there.
I think so. Well, I think the other narrative would be now it's you play one for the interim. This is that, hey, interim is in here.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do for him. Internal guy, obviously.
All right. Have you started making lineups?
Not really. I wrote the article for CTC, so I've kind of like I wrote about 21 dudes and like kind of looked at like some loosely percentage types.
Yeah.
So do you have any questions based on that?
No. Well, I've made like 3 lineups so far, but I feel like I'll be roughly 100% on Trey Palmer at like 4,200.
Yeah, that's a really low number.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The other guys I was thinking low numbers would be obviously Trig. I think Trig has a shot at being really good.
Oh, dude, I always forget like that DK is if it's a tight end, he is probably in the mid 3Ks, and it's an option.
Every Wisconsin tight end ever has been priced between 3,800 and 4,200. Sam Laporta every week since 2016 has been 3,700. So Trig is like 3,400, which is grossly underpriced.
Yeah, that's insane.
And I'm so torn on what I think his ownership will be, because before last week you would have thought 1%, right? Because he didn't do anything in week 1. Although he led the team in targets. He leads the team in targets, by the way. Overall, that's why I really like him. Not the 3 touchdowns last week or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I think Ole Miss quarterbacks play better, so that's a great one. Another tight end, Braden Willis, is like that same. I swear to God, he's like 3,900. They have such a high team total that I think that could be interesting. Although like that one doesn't move the needle as much for me.
Yeah.
And then Judkins, the running back for Ole Miss, is pretty cheap too.
Kind of fun.
Should be some good options. Thank God Charlie Jones is not 3,800, because that would have messed everything up.
What would you have done? You would have copped out and said, "I'll play 30% of him" or something like that, right?
I mean, he would have been 85 to 90% owned, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no way people are missing that, because it's even his, like fantasy point per game, right? Like, even I will scroll, like when I'm building stuff, like I'll just look at my phone sometimes and I'll just scroll and look at the fantasy points of the low stuff just to see if I miss anything.
Right.
So he would have gone on. I would have played probably like 60%, which would have been a dumb idea, because like you either go full fade or you just play what everybody else is playing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your theory with best ball. Like, don't take a guy that you don't really like 4 times out of 20. Just take him 0. Just go all in.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah. So what about Underdog? Underdog Fantasy.
Dude, so they've got the Friday pick 'em up. I was looking at it a little earlier. Travis coming off a bye, his body for probably the last time this year, his body is not in tathers, right? So over 37.5 yards feels good to me in a game that should be close. I think that they'll run him enough to get him over that pretty easily.
I think the volume will be there for sure. I think that game will be fairly high scoring, obviously, right? Like Plumlee had a good game, although he's a different runner than Travis. But they very much are. It seems like it's going to be a Travis and Ward show, and then Benson and Tuafili are just going to kind of be there, just like to spell him a little bit. But I like that rushing yards one. What do you think about? I hate to do this, but Air Force guys, those numbers feel interesting. Specifically, this John Lee Eldridge.
Who is that?
That's the running back that keeps running it like 4 times for 100 yards.
Dude, I have all I've noticed so far about Air Force is that they are not involving DeAndre Hughes, to much to my dismay, and that Hezek Daniels and Brad Roberts are not out recovering from injuries for the next 2 months. So I noticed that as well. So that was exciting.
So they're doing weird stuff. Shocker. Like Emmanuel Michael and DeAndre Hughes were guys that were pretty relevant for them last year, and they replaced them with this John Lee Eldridge.
Well, so I haven't watched any this year, but Michael and the other guy with the weird name, Fatah or whatever his name is, they're fullbacks. They are Roberts' backup. And then I'm just looking through their numbers now. Larrier's like the backup QB who also does fun things sometimes, more than just QB. DeAndre Hughes, though, was supposed to be like the Remsburg type, Kane Remsburg, right? Our boy. Like kind of what do you call that? Doing the orbit motion thing and then just getting like the handoff or sometimes a pitch kind of deal. But is that what they're doing with Eldridge now? Did he get leapfrogged maybe by Eldridge?
I have not paid too much attention to that. He's 5'9", 195, so you got to think
it's got to be his
outside.
role. I get I mean, you can give Air Force credit for a lot of things and still hate the way that Calhoun doesn't give us any information. I think that these two things can
100%
can exist. But they definitely, some coaches preach the open competition at every role, at every position. They definitely do, because we've seen year after year guys who had returning production all of a sudden just kind of disappear and be backups and get ascended upon by other players on the team. So, I mean, that's probably what happened here with my boy DeAndre Hughes. So, whoops, I'll take some zeros for him in best ball this year. But I mean, yeah, I assume that's it. But that role is so tough to bet on, to confidently bet throw into your pick'em, especially like when I'm building a pick'em or parlaying props or anything like that. Just generally speaking, I want to feel, I don't want to just be betting or taking like a coin flip or something that I feel like is akin to a coin flip. There's so much edge to be had with props that unless I'm just messing around and foaming at the mouth and need to take some action, I generally target the props that I feel like I have an actual edge on. And that position in the Air Force offense, I don't know how you could be confident outside of, like, for instance, we hear like Roberts is out. Okay. Then the backup dudes, Miguel and Fatty, will get more carries, but at the same time, they'll probably start to utilize the other runners more that play the other positions. Like, so that then maybe I would feel a little stronger about Eldridge's role in the offense. But just generally speaking, that your entire means for getting rushes is through those pitches where you're orbiting around pre-snap motion. Like, that is, unless it's built into the game plan and you could somehow conceive that is going to be part of the game plan going on, it just feels like it's very, like, it's never the first option.
Yeah, those are very risky. I don't feel comfortable really with any of those. I think the Jordan Travis rush yards one seems interesting. I like the Trayshawn Ward rush yards, feels interesting. What do you think about? And I'm gonna cut you deep a little bit here. Titus Swin. Talk
I
about
was
Titus
just
Swin.
looking at it. I was kind of thinking maybe under.
I was going to agree with you, or I'm going to agree with you. I'm
Yeah.
very surprised that you would say that. It seemed like everything I can tell from those that have seen the games and then the minor glimpses of me watching their games, he just doesn't look like Titus Swin. Like he's clearly hurt, right? It's like Tank Bigsby last year at Auburn. Like he was splitting so many carries with Jarquez Hunter, and now this Dawan McNeely looks decent enough, and they're running him more, so that under feels pretty good.
Yeah, that I agree. I was following along the box score last week, just waiting to see if he would get carries or what happened, and it might have just been a glitch in the box score. But I looked in like late in the first quarter, early in the second, it felt like he had nothing going on, and then all of a sudden he ends up with 3 TDs. But the score was glitching out all Saturday, like weird stuff. Like they were showing James Madison being down 21-0. I was like, oh, all you James Madison idiots, well, that's what you get. And then it turns out they're actually up 21-0. But so maybe that. And so the score, sometimes they'll show like they'll get that because the players, there'll be an offensive player and a defensive player that share the same number. They'll accidentally give the defender like all the carries sometimes. So maybe that's what happened here. But overall, like it feels like this is such a classic scenario of we're just kind of hoping and praying that's based on some touchdowns against an FCS opponent that Swen's back and Swen's not back. We're still pretty screwed, us Swen investors.
Yeah, I feel like if anything, they're bringing him in, or he's very relevant around the goal line.
Yeah.
But in terms of like pure rushing yardage, does not seem like he's going to be breaking anything big. So it stinks, but I would think the under there is a pretty decent play.
So you know what one of my favorite things to look for on Underdog Pick'ems have been? They don't have any up right now, but I noticed they had them last week. Is when they do the over under like half a touchdown. You pick that. And then you compare it to like a sports book and the odds, and sometimes it's not even really that close to being like a -110 or a coin flip type scenario. Like you can get some like all these are the idea is these are relatively close to coin flips, right? That's why you're picking the over or under. But sometimes they'll put up the touchdown, like will the guy score a touchdown type deal, and like they had Malik Cunningham up there last week as one that you could pick from. We talked about it here, and DraftKings also had it up for a while at plus money, and every other book had it at like -250.
Yeah,
which was amazing. It was great. It was a nice way to start the weekend.
It was the rushing touchdown, right? It was 0.5. I remember that. That was just like, I was like, wait, that's got to be a mistake, right? Like Underdog does a good job of making some competitive lines. Every now and then I feel like you can beat them to the punch a little bit with like some news, some injury news type stuff. That'll help maybe like, with the Braden Johnson Presley situation week 1. That helps with Jaden Bray. You could have gotten a little lucky there. But yeah, so if you're not playing Underdog Fantasy, check them out. The code is BTR or BTRPOD if you want to be fancy. And you can get up to $100 matched. Andrew and I did it. I don't think you can, right? Because of your location, Andrew?
Depends where I am on a given day.
Gotcha. Well, I did it. So I've taken advantage of it. I'm up on the season for the time being, which is scary because who knows what will happen. Don't put that power in my hands. But if you're not playing it, you should check it out. The rival stuff is fun too. I like the you can find some interesting stuff there that is really nice. I think I did Malik Cunningham like plus 21 yards passing or something against JRP. Those, I think you can find more edges than just your typical props, like your singular prop, because there's two sides to the coin. Like maybe they're grading JRP right, but Cunningham wrong.
Right.
They're doing both of them wrong. So I think you can find some fun stuff there as well. So, any final thoughts, Andrew? Anything to take us home to Friday's amazing 2-game slate?
Dude, it's gonna be another fun weekend. We have a late night Hawaii game, and then I believe, not to look too far ahead, but week 4 we start to get Thursday games.
And who plays on that Thursday?
Dude, I have it up right now. That dude, I remember. Well, you don't remember it fondly, but the Will Greer coming out party against you guys on Labor Day Sunday night. That was at the same time as the Josh Rosen 30-point comeback against A&M. What an amazing Labor Day Sunday night. Taking away fandom for a second.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. But that'll be a fun game. Well, I don't know. You guys make every game not fun the way you play, though. That's the problem.
We've definitely turned, especially now, we've definitely turned more defensive. I think our defense is pretty good. We've moved around. We crushed BC and made them look pretty bad, which is awesome to see.
I saw you grabbed the D and 50 team, right?
Yeah.
Did you see who you're playing this week?
Yeah.
So I looked up here. Let's end with this. So there's so many different good defensive matchups this week, and you can define a good defensive matchup very differently based on format and scoring and what you're.
I don't have them in the 50 team. I have them in industry, I think. But
okay, yeah,
we can still discuss
your
it for
team
sure.
pool looks like. And I've started to try and get a little bit more, in some instances, into like the game, not game theory, but the idea that you actually want, like, you need to get away from option teams and get toward teams that are actually going to throw the ball. That's how you get turnovers, create stuff like that. But taking away some of that, if you're looking for just a good high floor defense, your boys play Wofford this week. How many points do you think they've scored in 2 games?
They've played 0. They've scored 0 against like Elon and Chattanooga, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I saw the tweet and was like, I have to add them. I have to add them wherever I can. I looked in the 50 teamer and honestly, it didn't matter because I'm doing the whole 1 week ahead thing with the free agency for defenses. Yeah. I have Duke against NCA&T. So I feel pretty decent there. But 0 points. If you're not scoring it against an FCS opponent, and it's an 11 a.m. game too. Did you see that?
Like legit 11?
It's 11 a.m. Eastern.
No way.
Yeah.
Why? Is it like a holiday and do they need to start the
parade begins at 3 p.m. No, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know why. That was the only time Raycom was available. They were going to do Gone with the Wind reruns, so they got to get those in at the right time. But I have no idea. But 11 a.m. I'll be hopefully getting some turnovers and some pick sixes.
Let's do it.
But awesome. Well, we'll have this. I was gonna say we'll have this posted. We're not live, but hope you guys enjoy the week. Enjoy the weekend. There should be some fun games. I think an awesome late night slate, a great night slate as well. So if you burn your cash on the main slate, you have some options, some good options for sure. But everybody have a great day, great week, and we'll talk soon.